I'm Felicity. I'm a satisfaction specialist and a yoga teacher, and I'm all about empowering people, especially disillusioned people, to build and live a satisfied life that they don't feel a need to escape from. So like I say, I want to talk to you about finding your fire. A couple of weeks ago I talked about the first element, which is finding your focus, and I didn't tie it up to the elements, but that's very much an earth element. It's about grounding you. It's about getting your secure base in place so that you can then go off and do other things. And finding your fire is obviously a fire element. And this is all about finding your meaning and purpose in life. And this is really close to my heart because it really ties into my story of why I started a business. So I was having fun, kind of 6 years ago. I was in a life of having a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun. I kind of went to, me and my then husband, we did a lot of gigs, we did a lot of festivals, we travelled quite a lot, ate in Michelin star restaurants, we were away almost every weekend, we went to football matches, all sorts of things. And then I left him. I quite often say I then spent 6 months wondering why exactly I'd left him. You know, what was not good enough about my life then. And it's very interesting. I think a lot of people search and get on that hedonic treadmill where you're always after the next cool thing to do, the next hedonic high. And we're always searching for something else, something else, something else. And really all this is doing is trying to fill a hole that we have in our life. Or quite often it's about trying to fill an emptiness. And the word that I kept going back to was that I didn't feel fulfilled. I had nothing, there was nothing about me in my life that was important. I kind of thought, well, if I died tomorrow, what's my legacy? And I didn't have one. I didn't even, I'm going to say even have children. I have to be careful when I talk about this because I'm not dismissing parenthood at all. But if you've got kids, you know, you've got your legacy there. And I didn't even have that. I had nothing, and no real reason to get up in the morning. My job was a dead-end, boring job. So I decided I needed to find some purpose in life. And that's what I've spent the last 5 years doing. I did a lot of volunteering, advocating and helping refugees and asylum seekers. And it just didn't really fill my skill set. And I kind of wanted to, I'm a very independent soul. I'm an Aquarian. It's like I need to be kind of free and independent. So that's where I kind of like thought, well, actually, I'd like, and also I found when I was volunteering, I didn't have time to volunteer very much or really get into it while I was working. I thought, well, ideally, I'd like to not be giving 8 hours a day just to be earning a bit of cash to keep a roof over my head. I wanted to become a bit more self-sufficient. I'm still working on that. But that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm talking to you. This was me finding my fire. And this is, to me, what part of what satisfaction is. It's about finding a reason to get up in the morning. It's about waking up in the morning thinking, I've got this to do. And also about going to bed at night thinking, I've done something today. It's not like box ticking, but about knowing that something has been achieved today. So I'd love to hear, before I get into this bit deeper, what you feel your purpose in life is. And if you look at any model of happiness, from Aristotle back in ancient Greek times to modern neurologists, neuroscientists, psychologists, they will all say that just to have pleasure does not make people happy. You do need some pleasure to be happy. A thing called anhedonia, people who don't experience pleasure do find it particularly difficult to be happy. But you also need something more. So Aristotle would talk about hedonia, about our hedonic happiness. That's our pleasure. But he also talks about eudaimonic happiness. And this is about a life well lived. You look at any model, look at Martin Seligman or Sonia Lyubomirsky, all these people that I've spent the last 5 years studying, and they'll all say you need something else, you need some meaning or purpose to your life to really get some deep down happiness. So how do we get this? How do we work all this out? For me, there's about three different elements to this eudaimonic happiness. The first is our values. What are the values that you live by? Again, tell me in the comments what are the values that you live by. So for me, things like fairness. Fairness is a really important one. Inclusion. What else? I can never remember them off the top. And I should do, because I should live them as much as possible. Oh, I've closed the window down that I meant to keep open. Satisfaction is one of my values. So these tend to be single words, you know, it's like it's just a single word that encapsulates what you like to live each day by. It's not long sentences. And to me, your values are like your moral compass in a way. They give you direction, or it's not that they give you direction, they give you a sense of which way you are pointing and which way you need to orientate yourself to point in the right direction. Then your destination is your purpose. That's where you're trying to get to. That's where you're trying to progress to. So we use our values to orientate us, to guide us towards our purpose. And your purpose is more like a sentence. You'll have a few purposes, maybe at any point in your life, or you'll have a few purposes at different times of your life. They might just change flavour slightly. So going back to having children, you know, your children give you a sense of purpose. When your children are young, you want to keep them safe. You want to keep them secure. You want them to be educated. You want them to live an enjoyable life. You want them to be well fed. You want them to be well rounded. As your children get older, you know, even my parents still have children. You never stop being a parent, right? So maybe you need to be supportive. You want to be supportive to your children. So you change perhaps flavour and wording as you go through life. And that's your purpose in life. And it's not necessarily a box ticking thing either. My purpose in life is to help people live a satisfied life that they don't need to run away from. Well, I don't expect that at any point in my life I'm going to say, box tick, that's done. Part of this for me, and part of why I wanted to change my life, was actually I like working. I think the idea of work is quite often demonised. And I wanted to do work that I didn't want to retire from. This is what I mean by that I don't, you know, a life that you don't want to escape from. I want to be doing this work all my life. I don't expect to ever retire from it. There'll be different ways that I do it, but I always want to feel like I'm trying to fulfill my purpose in some way. And I can do that incrementally, of course. It's what I'm doing right now. So I can go to bed tonight thinking I've delivered on my purpose to give people some awesome information. So that's purpose. Purpose is our actual destination, or at least the road that we're travelling on. And then we have strengths. We have our strengths. And these change. You know, you might think, oh, I'm good with maths, I've always been good with maths, or I've always been good with words. But that's not really a strength, that's kind of like, it's perhaps a quality or an education or a slant that you're good at. But our strengths are much wider than that. So it might be more that your strength in, you know, you're good at maths. It might be more that you're very logically brained. But these things change and our skills change over time. So there's a really good survey. If you go on my blog, I think I posted my blog a couple of days ago, and go down to the strengths bit. So I'll go into some of this in a different way. Go down to the strengths bit. There is a link there to a strength survey, or I think it's via character. If you Google via character survey, it's a really good survey. It's quite in depth. Take you 10-15 minutes, and it pulls out what your strengths are. And this is not about looking at the bottom of the list and thinking, what do I need to improve on? You can't be good at everything. You don't need to be good at everything. You need to be very good at what you're good at. And when we work to our strengths, we're more likely to be satisfied, because we're more likely to achieve. We're more likely to make progress towards that purpose. So when our strengths and our values align, and there'll be some crossover between all three of these things. When those strengths are, if you want to think of your strengths as being like your car, your vehicle, or your tools, and we align it in the right way alongside our values to help us move towards our purpose. I hope that all makes sense. And like I say, I'd love to hear what your values are, what your purpose is, and what your strengths are as well. I'll put a link to the strengths survey in the comments, actually. It's not mine, I'm not an affiliate, I don't get anything from you clicking on it. So tell me how you feel about that, how you feel about having a purpose. And maybe you don't, and actually maybe you don't think you do, but you do. I think there's a lot of people who perhaps dismiss their work sometimes. But if your work is vocational, and if it's something that you've always wanted to do, your work is your purpose, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't have to be work. It could be in your personal life, it could be volunteering, it could just be how you treat people is certainly would be your values, and could be your purpose as well. So there's lots of different ways to come at that, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you about it. But I've waffled on for long enough, I think. And I'm going to come back next week in the next satisfaction session. We're going to talk about the third element of satisfaction, which is finding our flow. And the strengths come into this as well. Finding our flow. So, obviously. So if you think any of this is interesting, I hope you found it interesting. If you think it's useful, share me around. Tag your friends in. Make sure you like the page, like the post, give me some love, and I'll see you next week. Cheerio.